Hello and welcome again, art lovers. This is Figure Study, where we appreciate the form in Transformers. Today, I'm doing things a little bit differently. I actually wanted to do sort of a comparison. Uh, no particular reason other than I managed to get my hands on a masterpiece, Bumblebee, and I thought it'd be fun to take a look at that versus the G1 version of him. So I'm going to basically be looking at two figures at the same time, comparing them, and doing the other artsy critiquey stuff as best I can. All right, so we're going to start at the beginning. And here we have little G1 Bumblebee. This was the very first Transformer that I ever owned. It is still the original one that I've owned too. It's not like I got rid of him at some point and then got another one back. This little thing right here has been with me since the 80s. Since the early 80s. I think I was like 3 years old when my mom got this for me, and this is essentially what started this whole Transformers thing for me. So I of course do have the kind of a kind of high esteem for this piece because of my nostalgia, but at the same time, I do think it's actually a really interesting piece on its own. I'm just now noticing that there's actually some unfortunate. Not sure what that is. That's just like residue that can be cleaned off, or if that's something else entirely. But there's some gunk in the corners there. A little bit on this side too. That's unfortunate. But it's also a toy that's like 30 years old. Anyway, so this is, despite its simplicity, it's actually a really effective piece. It's obviously a Volkswagen Bug, a very cartoony, squat Volkswagen Bug, but it's easily identifiable. And despite being so tiny and so simple, it actually has a fair bit of detail to it. It does have, it's predominantly yellow, but it's got some nice black details here. He's a little bit loose because he's so old, but he's got some nice details here too. He's got the black trim, which really pops with the yellow, or helps the yellow pop. Either way you want to look at it. It's got the nice black bumpers there. Unfortunately, nothing with the headlights, but he's got the black windows all the way around, which is actually something that even a lot of more modern Transformers pieces don't do anymore. They usually just have like the windshield and maybe the side windows. On the back, he's got this weird kind of chromy sticker that looks like it's maybe a spare tire, kind of, sort of, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, color-wise, there's not a whole lot to him. He's basically yellow and black, with the exception of the little bit of red on the back there. But it's nice. The black actually breaks up the yellow nicely. And he's got his symbol on top there, which does not work anymore, unfortunately. Because, again, it's old. Oh. Okay, I take it back. It does work. And he's an Autobot. Spoilers. But yes, he's cartoony. He's simple, but there's a surprising bit of detail to this guy, and I do really appreciate the way that the color is broken up on him. Now, we're going to take a look at this piece. This is the Masterpiece edition of the same character, Bumblebee. What's different about this piece is, now this is the Generation 2 Bumblebee. The only difference between this and the regular Masterpiece really is the fact that he's got this gold paint as opposed to a more standard yellow looking paint. Now, I could go on about all kinds of ridiculous reasons as to why I have this as opposed to the other one, but really, he was cheaper and in stock and didn't come with a weird little figure that is supposed to be a person in a suit that turns into a car for some reason that I had absolutely no interest in. So G2 it is. Plus, I actually do really like this gold. It's a little bit, and at least, yeah, you can kind of tell right here that the color here is off. It's a little bit off, but it's okay. Anyway, he is also obviously a Volkswagen Bug. A lot more detail, though. He's still got the nice black trim with the bumper and the tires. He doesn't quite have the same black along the bottom that the original one has, but you kind of get a little bit of that just if you're looking at it from dead on the side just because of this kibble on the bottom. The bumper comes around to the back there, and there's some additional nice details like the taillights, the fact that all of the windows are clear, but they're clear, but they're opaque enough that you can't really see all the robot bits inside, as opposed to, again, this one where they're just straight up black. You can't actually see in there. Lots of other little details that are nicely, like the turn signals, not only painted in silver, but also the actual lights are painted a little bit. The headlights, the little crest on the hood, the hubcaps, which actually have a little, come on, which actually have the, there we go, have the Volkswagen logo in them, which is fantastic. The handles, it's really cool. It's like he's pretty much the same solid block of color, in this case, nice gold instead of yellow. But in addition to the darker parts that kind of break up that color a bit, he's also got all these tiny little pieces that just add a little bit more color to him. And of course, the molded detail is really nice too. He's got the kind of details behind the back windows there. And again, the hubcap logos, taillights, the tire on the back is an actual spare tire. It's not really a spare tire, but it looks like a spare tire. And he also has a single side mirror, which I'm assuming is just, it's because that's how the car came. And I'm also just noticing now that the windshield wipers are painted silver. That's really nice too. So yeah, a lot of nice detail on this piece. It's much more realistic than this. This is definitely like the squat little cartoony version. This is more meant to be realistic looking, but they both look good. For what it is, this one looks very nice. This one obviously is nicer just because the technology involved and the budget and all of that stuff has been, the artists were able to do a little bit more with this than they were with this, because this was a little bit limited, but they're both very nice looking. And they do look pretty cool together, I have to say. Let me put the smaller one in front there. And here you can see, the real difference. And in this lighting, this almost looks a little bronze, but it's not. It's like a yellowy gold color. But yeah, they're very similar, all things considered. The shape of the windshield is even the same. There's the way the windows are broken up is similar, although the back windows here are definitely shorter, and there's no, like here, there's that little bit of window in the front there. That's all slightly different, which is more because of this being smushed than anything else. They still have the silver rims, the back windows, which again, more sloped here, but this is more realistically proportioned, and this is much more cartoony. So that is Bumblebees, the Bumblebees in their vehicle modes, and I'm going to change them both into robots, and going to take a look at that next. All right, and here we have G1 Bumblebee as a robot. Unfortunately, my background's a little dark, so it's kind of tough to make out the limbs, but you sort of can. He's got the arms there, legs there, head, all that nice stuff. Now, again, he's a simple piece, so there's a lot of, oh, this is obviously that, and just the car kind of, front of the car folds down, forms the feet and all that. It's limitations of the times. But he looks nice. The black for the arms and the legs help to break up that yellow a little bit more. He's got a nice face, although it's molded in there, but paint-wise, it seems like he doesn't actually have eyes, which is a little unfortunate. But, the color works, and it's yellow and black. It's kind of goes with the whole bee namesake. I think that works pretty well. Now, what I thought was interesting about this piece, looking at it with just a more fresh perspective, I guess you could say, is, even though it's simple and it was just sheer limitations of the technology and budgets at the time in the 30 years ago, even with all that, I think it's really interesting how just the way the arms kind of jut out and go straight down, the way the legs are just stock straight like that all the time. It has this almost like ancient sculpture look to it, like ancient Egyptian or ancient, maybe not ancient Etruscan, maybe not even ancient Egyptian. I mean, like way, way back, like further back than that. It almost looks like some kind of like just the shape. It's almost like something from like a doll, or maybe some kind of carving from, like, if not Neanderthal, then something just maybe a few 100 years, 1,000 or 2 years after that. It's just this very simple humanoid shape that has no back. Yeah, he's not that great from the back. He's got this weird kind of jagginess there with his limbs that make them look uneven. But, again, I'm going to keep making the excuse that it's a much older piece, so they didn't quite have the means for really fancy stuff at the time. But, the color is broken up nicely. The shape, while very simple by today's standards, is nice enough. It gets the point across, and it does call back to a point. It calls back to ancient civilizations, which I think is actually pretty fascinating, considering, if you're familiar with the background on the Transformers characters, they kind of are an ancient civilization, just not one from Earth. So yeah, not a bad looking little guy for what he is. Definitely could do with actual hands. It looks like they tried to make it look like he had fingers, sort of, maybe, but not really. But again, limitations. Now, he looks okay. But what a difference 30 years can make. And this is going to be a little bit tricky with the camera here, but see if I can bring him a little closer. So, the more updated Bumblebee is definitely more detailed, but he actually has many of the same basic aesthetic choices as the earlier Bumblebee. He's got, the black arms, the black legs, the hood of the car for his feet. It's all very similar. But he's got the added benefit of his forearms being picked out in this case, gold as opposed to yellow, but it helps kind of make those limbs stand out a little bit more, breaks up the color a little bit more. And the feet, while they are still the same exact deal where you've got just the front of the car 4 feet. Because of the added benefit of all this engineering and posability, you can actually bend them a lot better and give him a more interesting silhouette. I mean, his silhouette is ultimately the same as his original toy. It's just, a little bit more refined. So if I can grab the little guy here real quick, you can actually see that just the basics here, it's pretty much identical. Even the chest area, it actually has the same way, like the windows are broken up, the same basic shape. This is a little bit squared off at the top here, but that's because the back of his car is folded up onto his back. They even have the same face. It's just the horns on this one are a little bit longer, and this guy doesn't have eyes. I mean, aside from just the painted details, the only real difference between these two is the fact that the older Bumblebee here has these wheel wells covering his shoulders, and this one does not. But it's amazing just how similar they are. And that was sort of the point. I mean, he's a masterpiece. The masterpiece Transformers are meant to kind of harken back to their original pieces. And that's what he does. He does it very, very well. He's just a very impressive looking humanoid robot. Look at his face here again. Now, he does have a couple of other faces that I have not put on him because I prefer the battle mask, and also it matches the G1 toy a lot better. And most of the detail that comes out when he's transformed is actually molded. Like the added details on the side there. With the branding. But, you can still see all the same car parts that you could before. He's got the very notable top, the incredibly, almost trademarked at this point, hood for feet. And he even still has his tire. How did this get... There we go. He even has his tire on the back, which in this case, instead of just being plastered behind his head, it's actually more of like a backpack. And it's removable, but I want to keep it on for the sake of this. So, he is very impressive. And we've still got like the little silver bits that are picked out, the logo, which is a sticker actually, and I opted for the more Generation 2 sticker, but that kind of breaks it up a little bit more. He's got this really nice blue for his eyes, as well as like the silver for the face, which is pretty much the same exact paint scheme that the original toy had, only he actually has eyes. He doesn't have the wheels on his shoulders anymore, or on his hands, which, yeah, it's not quite right, but it actually looks a lot better like this, because now he's much more a humanoid robot that is made up of car parts, as opposed to a car that's kind of a robot but still very much a car. I mean, really, he could just do that and he'd be like a roadster. Yes, it's been impressive seeing just what has been done to the same character. Just this sort of reinterpretation, reimagining 30 years later. They're both cool in their own right. Again, for what he is, considering he's 30 years old, he's still really neat. And sadly, he actually seems a little bit more detailed in some areas than other modern characters. Although, he's comparing him to a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece. It's in the name. This is supposed to be sort of the definitive look, toy-wise, for this character. He is just very neat. Really like that battle mask, and the gold paint just works really well for him, I think. Anyway, I'll try and get these guys set up here. There we go. Like father and son, with the son vastly outgrowing the father. Yeah, they look really good together. All right, anyway, gone off on too many tangents here. So that has been my look at the Bumblebees, the G1 Bumblebee, the Masterpiece G2 rendition of Bumblebee. And they are just very cool. He's timeless. When people think Transformers, they think, well, probably Optimus Prime first, but Bumblebee is in there. He's one of the notable ones. And they just do a great job of depicting him in both of these modes, considering, again, the 30-year time difference. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you would like, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, any combination of those three things. I would greatly appreciate it. And until next time, remember, art is more than meets the eye.